Welcome, welcome. If you are here with me live, please let me know in the comments. Would love to know who is here live with us right now. While you guys are doing that, that's the biggest announcement I've got. I'm still taking on one-on-one client. If anybody is looking to scale up acquisitions, our average clients get into about 2 contracts a week in about the 6-week mark. So feel free to reach out to me, DM me if that's something you're interested in. It will not be cheap, but you're welcome to hit me up. Next, I think that's all the announcements I've got for today. Today, we are going to be talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. And it is, do you have a leads problem or a conversion problem? Okay, a leads problem or a conversion problem. The snazzy tagline of this live is, what's your bottleneck? All right. And here's what we're talking about. Here's what we mean, right? I think I talked to some business owners, guys. I audit a lot of people's acquisition systems when we're doing discovery calls, right? I want to see what's the bottleneck in your business, what's going on, how can we remove that bottleneck as quickly as humanly possible, right? And what we find a lot of times is we have one of two issues, and if we have neither, the question is then how do we scale? Okay, so here's what I mean by that. If you are trying to grow your acquisitions, if you are trying to get more deals in your pipeline, you need to ask yourself the question, do I have a leads problem or do I have a conversion problem? Okay. Now let's break down what both of those mean. Number one, a leads problem. Okay. Do I have a leads problem? I want to be focused on two main things when it comes to leads, right? The first one is just a level of output. Okay. So if I'm only generating 3 leads every week, for example, guys, you've got a leads problem. It's just really hard to make deals happen when you're getting less than 30 leads in your pipeline every month, right? It's just really hard to get any level of consistency in that. Most of the clients I take on one-on-one are typically doing at least 25 to 30 a week, a lot of times, right? We need a lot of leads to play with so we can get repetitions, get better, get in, get out, do some good work. Okay. So the first one is going to be some level of output. If you're not tracking these metrics already, I would be tracking at a baseline your leads, your offers, and then your contracts you get signed. There's a bunch more stuff we can look at, but those are the 3 biggest things, right? And so to figure out if I've got a lead problem, just look at it and say, am I getting enough shots on goal? Now, everybody's businesses are a little bit different. If you're double closing deals and you're an average investor who on average is getting about a $15,000 margin on most of your deals, wholesale flip, I can tell you with confidence, you should be able to close, I don't know, 1 in 10, 1 in 12 of those verbally, and then a little bit less in terms of getting contracts signed. So for every 15-ish leads, we see somebody get a contract signed when they're doing double closings, when they build in good margin. There's a spectrum there, okay? If you have really high quality leads from like a direct mail blind offer, for example, you may be getting, 1 in 6, 1 in 8. I've seen as low as like 1 in 3 to 4, which is crazy. But a lot of people should be able to get more in the range of, somewhere between like 1 in 10, 1 in 15 a lot of times. I also just remembered I forgot to post these on socials. So forgive me while I smile for this. Everybody say cheese. And I am grabbing this link as we speak. So that is what I call a lead problem just from the perspective of output. Okay. That's just from the perspective of output, meaning I am not doing enough. So I really shouldn't be complaining about anything else. Like if I'm trying to scale acquisitions, if I want to do more deals and I'm just not getting a level of output where we are able to actually make something happen, well, then that's your problem. Okay. That's your lead problem from a frequency perspective, from a numbers perspective, right? Number 2 then is basically just a level of quality, right? So you've got output, you've got quality, which will start to come into our conversion problem, right? But here's what I mean by that is I know some people, gosh, guys, lead quality is such an in-depth topic. And it's something I was even talking to my friend, Jaron Barnes. A lot of you know Jaron, really good friend of mine. I think something he's really good at is he's been teaching investors, how do I text and get really good lead quality from texting as a marketing channel. So he's a rock star at that stuff, and he's just got a much higher standard for quality than I do, to be honest. I'm a big fan of shots on goal, especially while we're learning. Like, frankly, you can just get so many more repetitions and so much more learning in those repetitions if you're just doing the activity over and over again. I'll also say that you should be treating your leads once you're on the phone with them as if they're the same quality. Run them through the process. So we can talk about that when we get over to conversion. But the point being, are you producing leads, right, and output? And if you are those leads of decent quality? Now, my personal perspective is I need to be talking to a landowner that is interested in selling their property at some level, and would consider, a reasonable price and a reasonable offer and sell in a reasonable timeline. That's like a pretty good lead in my mind, right? There are some leads out there that want, $5 million an acre for their piece of crap land in the middle of nowhere because they think, Disney World's coming in or whatever. And those are tough. I get questions on that stuff a lot. I was just talking to a one-on-one client yesterday, and he asked me, if somebody wants 5 times market value, what do you do? I said, hey, depends on how much brain damage you want, transparently. Holistically speaking, if I were to give a blanket prescription, I would tell you some of those convert. If you were to look at 80-20 principle, it is definitely a minority of them. But the reality is, guys, what sets apart excellent operators, I see a couple people on here, like in the community, we've got Anshul Sharma and Josh Pierce and a bunch of other guys in here that are excellent operators. And what sets them apart from people that aren't getting deals is that they push to an offer, and, they and I haven't talked to these guys super recently on what they're doing in terms of qualification. I'd be interested in having you guys on if you want to do a live sometime soon. But once they're on the phone, you're going to drive to an offer, and a lot of times it's going to lead to a result, right? Whereas I know people that see, hey, a property's worth 60 grand. A seller wanted, we'll call it 60, maybe even 55, and they just won't even call them back, right? I'll do call reviews for clients, and I'll hear all the time people say, hey, why haven't you taken any other offers people have given you? And, the answer is one of two things. It's either they're always too low, or on the flip side, it's, well, nobody ever makes an offer. They have the conversation we're having right now, and then they never call back. And I'm like, man, how crazy is that, right? That these guys don't call back. So, if you've got a lead problem, anyways, I'm getting closer to conversion because that's my favorite part of all this stuff. That's what I focus on here, right? In the Land Closers Academy is we talk about leads, and it's, guys, are you getting enough? That's question number 1. Number 2, are they at least a baseline level of quality, right? Want to sell, reasonable price, reasonable amount of time. I close plenty of deals. I have, plenty of people in our ecosystem that close plenty of deals of people that are asking for asking price. So thank you, Josh. Every qualified property gets an offer. Exactly. If it's in your pipeline, man, make the offer. You already paid for the lead, right? And that will bring us over to piece 2 here, which is conversion. Okay. So we have leads, right? Do you have a leads problem, or do you have a conversion problem? And so if I'm in leads, I'm looking for quality, I'm looking for quantity, right? Am I at a level of output? Am I at a general level of, hey, this is a qualified property? Great. If so, are we converting these leads well? Now, that is a whole can of worms. That is what I talk about every week in all the different trainings we do, is how do we convert, right? Josh said, if anybody isn't making offers on their leads, I'd love to call these leads myself. I'll pay a fee if I can convert a deal. Heck yeah, you guys heard it here first. Josh is the guy. He is an excellent business owner and a good friend. And so on that note, as we're looking at conversion, right, I'm looking at a few different things. And guys, like I always talk about how I want to reverse engineer my business so that, number 1, I backstop all the ways that we limit ourselves from doing business with sellers, right? So if you've been in my free school community, Land Closers Academy on School, and read my script, a lot of the scripting we're focused on is, how do I avoid hangups, right? That's on the downside. How do I limit my downside by avoiding hangups? And then on the upside, how do I boost the probability of somebody doing a deal with me? So I focus on 3 main buckets when I'm looking at conversion. All right. I focus on 3 main buckets. The first one is some level of lead management, sales process, pipeline management. It's kind of one big hodgepodge, right? You could call it all sales process, but let's dive into each one of those, okay? So we've got, at some level, let's start with pipeline management, okay? Pipeline management, because I find when I audit people's businesses and look into their, their teams and talk to their lead managers and their acquisition managers, a lot of them don't know, hey, what's the desired outcome of this conversation? What do I do? How do I get to an end point at this stage in my pipeline? When do I know what the next step is? Who owns this at this stage? Is it me? Is it Josh? Is it, whoever else, Mike, Frank? Doesn't matter. But the question is, how much clarity do I have and does my team have when we come into the pipeline? So many teams, I look at their pipelines and it's like, oh, they've got some column with like 40 leads. And yeah, some of those are older, some are newer. We just kind of hit the fresh ones. I've got this column here. I'm like, dude, if you don't have pipeline clarity, you are losing so many shots. I guarantee it. Your team is confused. They're not always driving it to an offer, and you're just going to lose money, right? So getting pipeline clarity of what am I doing with leads in my CRM? What are the action items? Who owns those action items? Taken to the next stage, and then even a level of speed. How fast am I supposed to complete that task? Is there an expectation there, right? Both within how long should the task take, and then also like over what time period should I do this in? Meaning 15 minutes, I want it done within 24 hours once it hits the stage, right? Comping is a great activity. As an example, I know a lot of people, especially when they start hiring, end up having their team spend 15 minutes or more on comping. And it's like, dude, you could waste a lot of time spending an hour on a comp, right? So you don't want that. What's your service level agreement would be the corporate term, right? Of, who owns this, how long does it take, and what's the expectation for the task to get completed, right? Beyond that, do you have clear naming in your pipeline? Do we know what each stage means? Who owns, every column? What are the triggers for, when it comes into a stage versus when it doesn't? Is there notification systems within your CRM? Like we have so many little things that I could talk about another time, but the point being, high level, do we have pipeline clarity? Again, I try to keep these quick lives under 30 minutes if I can, because I know people only have so much time. So I don't want to go too in depth here. But I do just want to speak on the fact that if you don't have pipeline clarity, your team doesn't know what to do with your leads. If your team doesn't know what to do with the leads, I guarantee you're losing money. Okay. So that's one piece of sales process. Next, we have, do you have desired outcome at stages, right? Do we have, at some level, how are we moving things along and what does our phone cadence look like? Everybody makes fun of me because I talk about double and triple dialing all the time. It works, guys. Remember, I'm trying to limit downside. How do I guarantee I don't do business with a lead? I never talk to them. I never make them an offer. So what are things I prioritize in my sales process? You can guess: offers and getting on the phone with them. Right. So I've looked at, the downside of how do we like, what stops us from doing business with leads, and then reverse engineered the opposite of that. That's why I'm so passionate about triple dialing my leads and always making offers, because I can guarantee with reasonable confidence my odds of doing business with them are higher if I commit those activities than otherwise. Right. So that's a piece of this is sales process. When does a lead move forward, and am I double dialing, triple dialing, that sort of stuff, right? So those are some pieces in sales process. And then there's activities in there that boost your odds, like getting contracts signed on the phone or setting appointments or things like that, that again, boost the odds of show rate, pickup rate for somebody. If anybody here has ever worked with like a high ticket marketing agency, high ticket consulting, what's that expression? Book a meeting from a meeting. Bam fam, I think is what they call it, right? So book a meeting from a meeting. We should be doing this with our sellers too. If we're on the phone with them, if we have a meeting with them, we should set the next steps. I know a lot of people really struggle getting contracts signed live on the call. Cool, book a meeting 15, 20, 30 minutes later so that you can go through an agreement together, right? So that's all piece one. That's just sales process, okay? Piece two that I would get focused on is some level of key performance indicators, which is KPIs, right? We're always talking about numbers. Again, if you're in Land Closers Academy, I've got a free KPI sheet in there. You can download it. You can riff it. I stole it from my friend Chandler Sane. I told him that when I had him on here last week. I love the guy. He's brilliant. And so I have borrowed some things and made them my own, and he is well aware, okay? And so in knowing that, what gets tracked gets managed, right? What gets measured gets managed. And so I want to make sure I have some level of oversight of, is my staff performing? Is our performance getting better or worse? It's really hard to quantify that outside of, money in the bank if I don't have some level of metrics for my staff. And to be quite honest, guys, money is a consequence of good business. So when we talk about dollars, when we talk about income, those are consequences. Those are reactions. Those are lagging indicators of us running good businesses, right? So I want to be focused on leading indicators. What do I know brings in money? Well, deals. How do I get deals? I get contracts. How do I get contracts? I make offers. How do I make offers? I have to get on the phone with leads. How do I get leads? I sign up for a cold caller. I send out text messages. I send out mailers. I drop RVMs. I go on market. I network. I get JV leads. Like there's a million different ways to get deals. But the formula is I need to get leads, qualify those leads to get my net leads, get from my net leads to make offers on those properties. From those offers, I need to optimize for getting those offers accepted. Once they're accepted, I need to get contracts signed. And once I get contracts signed, I got to do the deal, right? And unfortunately, some of those deals fall out, right? On average, we see between 60 and 80% of signed contracts actually get to the finish line. And you need to be able to predict what you're going to be doing in your business for the next year. So you got to have oversight into those metrics, all right? So that's something that, I want focus on is, hey, what are your KPIs? And then another thing is what you have your staff report to you is a signal to them that this thing is important. So if it's in front of you, if it's in your reticular activation system, you are more likely to put time into it and emphasis on it and energy towards that activity. And here's what I mean. When I say the reticular activation system, it's that piece of your brain that's focused. Okay. And here's an example. If anybody here has ever bought a Jeep or a Toyota, you always see the Jeeps and the Toyotas on the road, right? You buy a red car, you see red cars. You buy a blue car, you see blue cars, right? It's that thing. That's that piece of your brain that says, oh, this is familiar, so I'm paying attention to it. You're doing the same thing with your teams when you say, hey, I need you to tell me how many offers you got every day and how many contracts you got signed. I can promise you they don't want to report 0 on both of those every day, right? So it becomes really important that we focus on like what are our leading indicators to get our desired outcomes, right? Leading indicators for most people running acquisition-based businesses or some level of offers and contracts to get deals, right? So all that stuff's important. That's just KPIs. So we've talked some level of sales process, some level of KPIs. And remember, guys, all this is just conversion. So I want more deals. Do I have lead problem? Do I have conversion problem? If I have lead, I'm looking for output quality. If I'm looking at conversion, I'm looking at sales process. I'm looking at KPIs. And then number 3, last but not least, I'm looking at scripting. And guys, scripting is so important, okay? Now, some people get the heebie-jeebies when I say scripting, but it's like, what words are you saying when you're on the phone with sellers? In those conversations, do I have desired outcomes? If you look at my scripts that I have in school, in the Land Closers Academy, quite literally, guys, at the top of them, I have objectives, right? The objective of a lead manager call is to get an asking price and to book an appointment for my closer. If I'm a closer, my desired outcome is really to get a contract, but at most either get a rejection or a contract, right? And then really it's to book a meeting to sign an agreement, right? And notice I'm interchanging the words contract and agreement. If I'm speaking with a seller, try to use the word agreement. It sounds less pressury and they receive it better in their brains, okay? So that's piece number 2 there. But in my scripting, right, I have what are all my conversations, what are my desired outcomes, and then throughout, what am I saying, right? And there's a formula to these conversations. I remember my mentor, Jenny Hudspeth, would always say, sales conversations are like baking a cake. If you don't do your activities in the right order, you're not going to get a cake. Here's an example. If anybody here has baked anything in the past, you put flour in a pan. If I throw that pan in the oven for 20 minutes, take it out, and then crack some eggs into it, you think I'm going to get a very good cake? Absolutely not. Okay, that will be disgusting. So the point being, it is really important that we are mindful of the order that we do things on our conversations because they're like baking a cake, right? It's important. Like, guys, these are really, really important conversations to our sellers. I know to us, it's just, hey, I make 5 of these every day and I'll get a couple deals every week and that's great, right? But to them, they're selling something that may be a generational asset in their family and they're only going to do 2 to 3 real estate transactions in their entire life. This is a big deal to them, right? So it's important that we put some emphasis on that in the conversation. So the point here being your scripting matters so much, but that's just a process, right? So we had in our inner circle, in the inner circle is our paid community where we meet every single week and we do call reviews and go over sales process and talk about all this stuff. And one of our clients, Dan Larson, came on and he just told me he hit 2 contracts a week. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. What was the biggest change you've made since joining? And he was like, sticking to the script. Because the script is a process, right? Now, It's one thing to have a process, and it's another thing to manage a process, right? And here's what I mean. Creating a script, borrowing a script, having a script, cool. All that stuff's great. It's another thing to make sure people actually use it. I have one-on-one clients where I'll listen to their calls and I'm like, dude, you're off script. And that's okay if you deviate, but you got to come back to this as home base because you sound bad right now. I don't know why you're saying these words. Where'd you get that from? Right? That is not conducive for this conversation. So one thing to have a script, it's another to manage to it. I find so often, I mean, I have a guy I was listening to today who's a great closer. I mean, this guy gets, 1 to 3 contracts every single week. And and I did this call review and he was like, man, this guy got really aggressive with me and I couldn't tell why. And I listened to it. And in the first 90 seconds, I'm like, bro, you didn't frame. Like you did not tell the seller what the agenda of the call was. So he didn't know the offer was going to come after questions. So he got fed up. We've talked about this, right? On Monday, we also talked about, somebody brought up the old concept of like, hey, well, what do you do when people say something to the effect of, when you're asking, well, hey, why do you want to sell? And they say, well, you called me, you tell me, right? And so we have language for that in our group that we talk about, where I would say, hey, Josh, listen, man, I know that I reached out to you. I know that we reached out to you, but can I ask, were you considering selling your property before we did? See how different that questioning is? So in a landscape where people are used to getting these calls pretty often now and text messages every day, we've got to tweak the words we say so we sound different, right? So your scripting becomes important, and then your management to that scripting becomes important, which is where I like to institute call reviews. I do call reviews with my team at least weekly, right? I meet with some teams externally and basically get to act as a fractional sales manager, either in a group or a one-on-one setting. I don't do a lot of one-on-one, but it's really, really fun in a group setting. And it helps everybody get better. It also makes them pay attention to the things we're talking about, the reticular activation system. We hop on and I say, hey, dude, how many offers you make last week and how many contracts you get signed? And they say 10 and 1. And I'm like, why'd you only make 10 offers? The lead quality was bad. I'm going to look at the business owner and say, dude, what are you doing to fix the lead quality, right? Like, we need to be on this stuff, because if we don't, we're just not going to get contracts. And in 3 months, we're going to be like, hey, how did we run out of money? It's because you didn't have consistent deal flow because you weren't paying attention to the metrics that mattered. Money is a consequence. It's a lagging indicator. Now, let's take a step back and let's say both look good. Let's say both look good, guys. Let's say your leads are awesome and your lead quality is great and you are converting, right? So we've got leads problem and conversion problem, and you're converting consistently. You're getting, 3 contracts a week on, 20 to 25 leads. I'd be like, dude, you are crushing it. I remember I looked at my buddy Rob Krebs' business and I was auditing his KPIs, and his guy Wallace was rock solid. And I looked at his numbers and I was like, dude, your closing is really good. And in my mind, I'm like, you either need to feed him more leads at the same quality, or we just need to double the business, which scares some people. And if you don't want to double it, that's fine. Just don't tell me you want to grow. If you want to grow and your conversions look good and your leads look good, well, then we need to multiply. We need to duplicate. That's our next step, is duplication, right? And to duplicate well, now we need good hiring, training, right? How are we managing our sales process? It matters more and more over time. So guys, what are we at on time? Almost 25 minutes. Sweet. So my point here is just, we have leads problems. We have conversion problems. Within leads, I'm looking at output. I'm looking at quality. Within conversion, I'm looking at sales process. I'm looking at KPIs. And then I'm looking at scripting and how I'm managing that scripting, right? Those are my big buckets. If I can do those things, we can convert more deals all day long. We'll get more contracts. We'll print them because you talk to anybody that's been doing this for years, guys, there's no secrets. I mean, there's some, right? But in all reality, like, we post a lot of this stuff for free. I have a free course out, right? There's so much stuff on YouTube nowadays. If you want to be doing deals, the information is out there, okay? Those are the things that I'm focused on when it comes to scaling up acquisitions. And if we get to a place where we're happy with both, then we just need to duplicate, right? Now we need to ramp up marketing, duplicate our acquisition manager and maybe our lead managers or whoever's supporting that. And you might tell me, dude, that's hard and scary. Yeah, no crap, dude. So is running a business. Welcome to it. Like, I know a lot of us got into this for the side hustle of making 10 grand a month, but if you're really going to tell me you want to be making 50 to 100 grand a month, you got to commit to the hard thing. Like, it's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would be making 100 grand a month. It's just not, right? So that's what I got this week, guys. It was on my heart because I was, doing a discovery call with somebody, and we were just looking at stuff, and they've got a conversion problem, and I just wanted to be able to explain this. So I wanted to start putting together some material on this stuff. And yeah, I'm just so passionate about, hey, what's your problem, right? Let's look at the numbers. I need numbers as a baseline. When we do, I can ask some probing questions, and we can figure this out and ramp it up pretty quick, right? So I'm looking at comments here. Josh said we even call it a written offer with the seller. That's sweet. Guys, let me know in the comments, what questions do you have right now? What questions are you guys going through as I'm talking through leads versus conversion problems? Anybody have any questions at all? I'd love to answer anything that's coming in. I'm not seeing anything. Sweet. Well, hey guys, if you're coming to the Sales Blitz, super excited to have you. Really excited to see you guys on Friday. I'm still working on some of my presentations for it, so that'll be a super fun time. If you're in our paid community and you're not able to come out, I will post it in our private school. And yeah, guys, if you're looking for some training, if you're looking to try to get better at your conversions, or you want someone to be auditing your business, I would say the Link Closures Academy is a great place to hang out. Interact with people in the free school community, interact with people here on Facebook. If you're looking for some more support, feel free to reach out to me. But yeah, I appreciate everybody here, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.